Hi, everyone that just joined.
Hello,
Welcome to
hello.
Notion's first hot seat session with Marie and Ben and Max and myself.
Yay.
We're just going to wait a couple minutes for people to filter in, but so excited to see the people that are already here.
Hey, Kat. See some Notion ambassadors here. Hello.
Hey, Terrence, how's it going?
It's like a small knit community. All you all know each other.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, someone from Croatia. Wow, this is awesome.
Hello, Wendy. Such a global community. This is.
Yeah, so if
you're Thank you, Andre.
if you're using Notion as at a startup or an organization, tell us a little bit about that in the chat.
Yeah, tell us how big your team is, because we know there's always interesting challenges at scale with Notion. So, Jennifer, welcome. And Notion is life. I know. 10 users, yeah. 200 plus? Holy moly.
10 people. Just got started 2 weeks ago.
Very cool. Always curious to know what people were using before. Awesome, Kendall. Ooh, just tried Monday. Okay, some new users. This will be interesting.
I think she's I think they're referring to Monday.com.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
The app.
Nice.
Good call, Ben.
Andre's saying Notion's a dream. That's how I felt too after I set it up, did all kinds of things I did not know it was going to be able to do.
What were you doing before, Max? What were you using?
Google Docs, ClickUp for task management. Yeah, storing stuff in Google Drive, the usual suspects.
Yeah.
But like, very fragmented things.
Yeah, and I think one of the issues too is people start to use Notion like Google Docs, like they don't really know how powerful Notion is. So you still end up doing the same sort of file folder structure that a lot of other tools do. And there's a better way.
Yeah, the thing that started us was realizing we needed somewhere to put our handbook. And you can kind of organize a handbook in a Google Doc, but like, you just have the table of contents off to the side, and it's this like enormous thing that you have to scroll through and search through, and you can't really have like a clean hierarchy with context and all that. So that was like the first appeal of Notion, just a place where you could like have folders and clear hierarchy where you don't lose context. We used it for our handbook and then realized, oh, we can actually use it for all kinds of other operational things.
What else can we do with this?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Awesome. So should we get started? I think we can jump in and let people kind of filter in. Well, welcome again to sort of Notion's first branded hot seat session with Marie and Ben. It's one of our first ones doing this, first time doing this, but Marie's done this type of session before in the past with some awesome results and gotten a lot of great feedback. And so we decided to do one and help her do one that's branded with us. But really, like, just as a reminder, these hot seat sessions are not like end-to-end demos. It's really the opportunity for a real life founder, in this case, Max, to really walk through and ask those questions that they've been trying to solve in Notion, all those nuanced things, the concerns, the challenges you face, which is absolutely true when you're trying to set that Notion up, Notion workspace up for your team at first. Marie's probably the most knowledgeable Notion user we have. I think our founder, Ivan, called her that, and not just me saying it. And she's one of our ambassadors. And fun fact, when I was a founder before this, I actually used to watch Marie's videos to figure out how to use Notion for my team. So full circle for me.
Full circle.
And who am I? I'm Awais. I work at Notion. I'm focused on SMBs and startups. Before this, I was actually a founder, went through Y Combinator, raised money, got customers. I'm not just saying that to market myself in any way. I'm just saying I did all of those things on Notion alone. So obviously drank the Kool-Aid, experienced with the platform, but wanted to get more founders to come and talk about what they're struggling with, what they're trying to use Notion for. And so with that, I'll just give you a little intro before I pass it off to Max, who then will pass it off to Marie to kind of walk through how we improve a workflow. So Max is a co-founder and CEO of this company called Harmonic. They're building the next gen professional network, but really you can think of them as like Bloomberg for pre-IPO companies. Really good data on private companies, especially startups. We use them a lot at Notion. We love their product. We're trying to use them for like 3 different use cases now, as well as Brex, Sequoia, MongoDB. A lot of other companies use them. He's going to talk about him trying to build a project management system in Notion where all their new hires can actually, especially because they're hiring a lot of engineers, how can those engineers get up to speed on a project pretty quickly and start to contribute? They're scaling pretty fast. So again, it's a live walkthrough, informal, in the moment. Ask any questions. I'll try to answer in the chat. Ben will as well. And please ask in the questions chat so people can upvote, downvote your questions. Actually, I don't know if you can downvote, but upvote mainly. And yeah, with that, I'm going to pass it to Max to introduce his company and then kind of show his workspace.
Yeah, thanks, Oase. And thanks for having me here. I'm excited to be here. We already love using Notion, and we discover every week that it has more capabilities. And now getting like a dedicated consulting session is like the best thing we can ask for to make our workflows even better. So yeah, like I said, I'm the CEO at Harmonic. We're a team of about 20 building a data engine that gives VC, sales, growth teams data superpowers. So we have the richest, most comprehensive pre-IPO company database out there. It's updating in real time. And we let customers search over that universe of companies, especially early stage companies, in a way that hasn't been possible before. So we combine all the headcount and team resolution you'd expect from a LinkedIn with all the funding resolution you'd expect from a PitchBook or Crunchbase, and with temporal resolution that you can only expect from Harmonic. So our platform lets you construct hyper-specific searches. For example, show me all companies founded in the last year whose headcount has grown by at least 50% in the last 6 months, where one of the founders comes from a top university and has a successful prior exit. So this lets customers essentially put their theses or ICPs on autopilot. We support push notifications. We have a nice API in addition to our powerful web platform. And we partner with data connectors so customers can get data automatically, whether it's net new leads or they want to enrich existing data directly in their warehouses or CRMs. Yeah, and like always said, we've been growing really quickly. So there were 3 of us in February. Now we're about 20. Little by little, we've started migrating all of our workflows over to Notion. So you'll see when I pull my screen up that like it's a little disorganized right now, but we're really excited to figure out how to, yeah, get like an even better workflow going. So let me pull my screen up real quick.
For those of you that just joined, feel free to answer the question in the poll, which is, have you used Notion before or not? That would be super helpful for us.
Yeah, so like I said, we essentially started using Notion to serve as our handbook. We were looking for a place to just kind of memorialize like our vision, our values, our culture, some onboarding processes, like relatively static docs that definitely do get updated over time, but not necessarily like our operational workflows. And then little by little, we started realizing what Notion can actually do. And like our department specific pages in the handbook started evolving into these like operational epicenters. So the engineering department has everything from like, you know, engineering standards to manual process explanations, to release process being documented. And we started hosting all of our syncs in here too. So here's where we have like our backend engineering syncs, for instance. And here's just an example of what our template looks like. So we have, you know, our agenda each week. We have some ongoing action items that we want to check in on each week. And then we have an action item database down here that links to our global action items database, where we can kind of review stuff that was meant to be done from the last sync and add anything that comes up during this sync. And then we also have pre-mortems, post-mortems, retrospectives, all this kind of stuff. And one of the main issues that we've been having is we realized that we'll have a, objectives document and product requirements document, and then specific design documents that all relate to the same project, right? But they're just in different folders within the engineering repo here. And then we'll have specific syncs where we talk about something related to that project and create an action item that's related to that project. But all of this stuff is kind of spread out all over the place. And what we'd really like to do is have it be the case that like any engineer or really anybody on the team in any department that's working on something and gets linked to a document related to it, whether it's a design doc or a PRD, can easily get the rest of the context for that project. So like, yeah, let's say they open a PRD and there's some way to easily see on that document which project does it relate to. And then they can go back to some central place that gives all the rest of the context for that project. So an overview and who's on the project team and what the timelines are and all the existing material in our Notion related to that document. So I started thinking about this like a few weeks ago and just created this projects folder here, created a simple template. And we just give a quick overview of the project. I haven't even filled out a lot of it because I was just kind of experimenting here, and then started linking to some of the docs that we have. You can tell because like this is empty and we've probably created documents other than these, that the one downside of this is like somebody has to remember every time we do something new related to this project to come in here and add it in. And it would be awesome if there was some way to keep central project context without somebody having to remember to always come and do this process. Yeah, so I guess I'll pass it over to you, Marie and Ben, see what thoughts you have.
Awesome. Yeah, so Notion has graciously built a dummy workspace for us to work with. So unfortunately, we're not going to be working with the real data, but we've got something close enough that hopefully we can work with. So do I need to reshare my screen again, Oasis?
Yes. If you just click the arrow there and then just share. Yep.
There we go. All right, cool. So we've got a sort of similar harmonic handbook here. So I think one of the biggest things that's missing is you're not connecting up your projects database to all of these other databases. So there's a lot of one-off databases, and there might be maybe more than we need, and they're very context specific. So what we want to do is kind of pull out some of this stuff that lives kind of deep inside your handbook and pull it to be more of a top level item, right? So I think a lot of your stuff is buried in this engineering page, right? A lot of different doc types. So I think we need to start identifying what are some of those bigger, higher level pieces. So we know projects is going to be one of those global items. And Ben, let me know if you agree with this, but I think some of this we could actually move right into the sort of top level workspace sidebar while we kind of make some decisions around what should be pulled out.
Yeah, I think we'll start by moving that projects database up to the top level. And I think there's a lot of opportunity here to identify some models that all the teams use that should be moved up to the top.
Yeah.
One thing right off the gate that we're noticing is that there are multiple independent databases for time-specific things like syncs, pre-mortems, post-mortems that are in separate databases and not linked to the project. So I think it makes sense to bring up some sort of top-level events calendar or events database that has all of those in it, and we can further scope those down by using a type property on there or something like that. And that way we can link them directly to the project database. And now, so we can take those syncs, move them up to the top, and then if you still want to have that syncs view in engineering, we can create a linked version of that events database and sync and have the type be filtered on syncs. That way we can bring those back into the more specific and the projects database as well. That'd be where I would start.
And so when you say having a sort of events-based or calendar, do you think we should create a new one, or should we work with one of the ones that Max has already set up?
Well, given that we don't have any data in these, I would start something new. So maybe just rename that syncs one to events or meeting notes or calendar or something like that. And then the great thing about Notion is when you drag pages from a database to another database, it'll copy over all the properties and stuff. So we can merge those two separate databases, the pre-mortems and the syncs, into one database. And if they have any independent properties, they'll be intelligently merged, so to speak, and then we can clean that up afterwards. The one thing I really like about doing this and having a top level calendar is, as a person who, like, let's say I want to have a quick sync with somebody at the company, even an ad hoc meeting, I don't need to come into my Notion space and think about, where do I put this event, or where do I put this meeting that we just had. And I think a lot of organizations like to have these records of decision making. In engineering, I heard Max refer to this thing as a PRD. I've heard also I think it's like ARDs, like architectural record decisions. So when you make a decision as an engineering organization, you want to record the decision that was made so that you can refer back to it later. So that might be something that maybe even two engineers at the company want to have a quick meeting about something. They can go right to the Notion space and click on the current date and then say like ad hoc meeting or sync or whatever. And what the nice thing is that because we're going to connect this to the project database, this meeting is going to show up in the project's database later. So I don't have to, as Max said, go and copy the link to that and add it to the record manually. So it looks like Marie right now is creating this is your first project entry here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've actually never used the calendar feature. And this is like another, right? So Notion's got like a lot of great search features and linking features and stuff, but often you're trying to remember, like, where did I store that thing? And another thing that helps us remember things is like time. And so you can say, oh, I remember it was last week. I don't remember exactly where I put it, but then looking at the calendar, it's like an awesome way to get that context back.
Yeah.
This is a tricky thing about Notion, is that one of the things that it's so open-ended that it doesn't, most productivity and like project management apps start with the idea that everything is associated with time and a calendar, and the work that you're doing can't really exist without some sort of, time, right? So that's sort of like an understood for a lot of project management apps, but Notion allows you to kind of build it however you want. So if you want that kind of time focused scoped experience, you have to create that yourself. And I find that having a company events or company goings on kind of thing is great. This allows you to also have independent dashboards for each of your areas, where you can say, like, what are the last 10 meetings that happened in engineering? What are the last, how long has it been since we've actually done a sync? You could see that at a glance really quickly by using roll-ups and filters.
Yeah, just to add, Max. Oh, sorry, Marie. That's exactly how we use Notion at Notion. Like you would imagine, but like we have the views, and then you can see like each team's meetings and quickly get context into which teams we're meeting. So it's definitely how we also use it as a company. I just wanted to add that. It's pretty cool to see.
Awesome. Yeah, like you might decide some of these pages that are more information-based might be more action-oriented. So if you clicked on engineering, you might see some of your documents and stuff, but you might also see what's the calendar with the most recent events or active projects in that department. So it can kind of become a more functional dashboard for the engineering department.
Mm-hmm.
So we've created a relation between projects and events. And I just like to rename this to just events or calendar. Right, so we know we've got an ad hoc sync that happened there. Right, so that's just one of the many, but I think now we should probably make a connection between the docs and the project as well, right? We can decide how specific or how general we want to go with that docs. We got there we go, Project Flamingo, RFC, product spec, right? We can start to bring this information together a little bit better so that we're not just kind of linking in and you're clicking out and kind of leaving the source of the data. So we're kind of pulling in the data to you into one snapshot. So product docs here, that's going to click and link you out, but at least we could actually
you could also, you can also show, you're just going to add a database there to pull those in instead.
Let's do, we're going to link our docs database. And since there is a relation between the docs and the projects, I don't want to see all of the docs. I just want to see the ones that are linked to the projects. Let's add a new view here. I'm just gonna just use a table view, add a filter. I just want to see anything related to this particular project. All right, and I can also hide these too. Like maybe I don't need to see who created it, last edited it. You can decide what properties you want to see. Don't need to see the project because I'm inside there. Right, so what this does too is it allows you to actually jump back and forth between the data really easily. So if I want to jump in, check out that RFC, okay, great. Yep, go back to the project. It starts to connect it in an easier way that you can just, again, jump back and forth very quickly without being sort of outside of the context of the project and having to go back and use the back button and where did I save that? It just ties it all together. And I think what's going to be more helpful too is to actually make a template for these projects too. So we could show kind of what does a good template look like that would start to pull in your events, your docs, etc. And are there a couple other top level databases, Ben, you think would be good to address right off the bat, like whether it's a roadmap or whether it's
So I don't necessarily think there's any more need for top level databases, you know, given the time limit that we have today. But I think that there is an opportunity here to utilize what we just created, the projects database. Like if we, so go back to your projects and open up a project again. So let's say that what do we got at the top? We've got a date. So right there, we can utilize that date and specify a date range, and that would allow us to create a linked. So now if you, what I like to do with, you know, you could create a top level milestones, project milestones database, and that would allow you to create a timeline for each project that has different milestones. Or we could show like, you know, the events on there on a timeline as well. So we could see all, you know, the syncs, all those different things that are happening in a calendar within that project. If that's another way you want to do it.
Right. So you're thinking a timeline view for the projects?
Yeah. And we might leave this projects database alone. Let's say create a new page at the top level called roadmap. So you could, in this page, link in that projects view with a timeline. So I was actually thinking, like, turn this back into a page.
I don't think you actually can. You have to,
yeah, you'll have to delete and recreate it. It's a bit of a limitation.
Come on, Notion.
Okay, so just say empty with icon.
Yep.
And then link a database here. So you would say / create linked database. Projects, and then you're going to add a view timeline.
Right. So I think Project Flamingo is the only one with the date, so it's the only one that's going to show on the roadmap at the moment. Yeah.
So, and you could probably hide those things on the side there. And one thing you might do here to clean this up is to filter by projects that have a date set.
Which I think Notion does automatically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now that gives us like an idea of like what projects are in progress at a glance, and you know, keeping it. I think you can make top level databases like what you did earlier was make a roadmap that had a timeline, but this allows us to, like, we can make a roadmap that starts with the project timeline at the top, and then below it we might do, say, some really individual projects. You might make an individual timeline that shows all those milestones for that project on there. So this is the way that you can create like a dashboard that gives you like an overview of what's happening at the company. So say below that you wanted to make the Project Flamingo timeline, that might actually be a linked database that links to milestones and filters by Project Flamingo, something like that.
Are you saying I should embed the projects database again, or?
No.
Nope.
No. Just giving an example.
Cool. All right. So other properties you think would be helpful on this roadmap page, or even within the project?
Let me open up. I'm gonna have a look at the space. And
we've got our docs, we've got our events, sprints, the postmortems.
Yeah, so I think like, you know, turning this into like having the syncs or whatever in there. So I would move maybe move the templates from those syncs, the sync templates up to the events database so that anybody can create a sync from the top level thing.
Gotcha. So here under the engineering department. Oh, I think we renamed syncs to events.
Mm-hmm. So I would go back to events.
Mm-hmm.
And open up any event, and let's look at what properties we have there, because I think this is an important like canonical source of information about what's happening. So, and I would probably either change the tags to a single select, and that's where you're going to be able to filter by types. So
right,
yeah, so you make
milestone, meeting
could be the pre-mortem,
right,
syncs, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Okay. I'm guessing we should probably link these meetings to the docs as well.
Yep. Yeah. And so as I understand the way that Max's team is doing these syncs, that there's some things that they're reviewing at each sync, which is in a separate database. And there's also some actions that may come out of those meetings. So I think for these at least for the sync type meeting, we need to link in the actions, their top level actions database, so that they can see that at a glance. Perfect. So maybe, yeah, so that's the top level actions one.
So we'll link these up to the action items. Okay. Great.
And then, yeah. And so in order to facilitate good meetings, yeah, I would I'd say add a new template for a sync meeting. Yeah, you got it.
Sync. Okay. And I guess we don't need to have anything in here, but we could probably put those linked databases in the body as well, right? So
yeah, I'm gonna have a look at the.
Yeah, like let me know what you always do in your sync meetings. Probably need an agenda too. Who's there, right? Want to add person property, or just say who.
Yeah, attendees, organizer, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you might even have more than one, owner, attendee. Up to you. Only use what's helpful to you. Okay, probably want to include your action items here in the body, and then we're going to filter it to this particular meeting. Just make a new. So I'm just linking these action items here related to events, sync meeting. Great. So anytime he makes a new sync meeting, it'll automatically be connected to this database. What else should go in this sync meeting, Ben or Max?
Yeah, I don't see the original template in our copy of Max's space, so he'll have to answer that one.
Yeah, the first thing that we have is usually the agenda, and we have a local database for that. So we just say, you know, who's owning that item, how long is it going to take, what's the topic.
So yeah, Marie, it probably makes sense to make the agenda an inline database. That way, when if they need to move, drag and drop things to action items, they can easily grab and add an item.
I do that, but I usually do it with regular text.
Okay.
Were you thinking it would be a like?
Oh, you drag?
Yeah, like if you were like,
oh, I didn't know you could do that.
Blah blah, new things. So
Yes.
let's say as you're talking, you could just kind of quickly take notes, and then you might be like, oh, okay, these things are action items now. I'm going to drag them in here, and they're automatically going to be associated with this project.
This is somewhat embarrassing. I didn't know that either. That is so cool. That's
it's especially great for. I mean, you can even have you know, call out buttons or toggle buttons, right? Like new thing here, and you can have a whole bunch of nested stuff in there. And again, you can kind of drag it in. Everything moves in. So it's great for projects where you do the same thing over and over again, but you can't associate dates yet. So right into your template, if you know there's stuff that you do every single time, put them in there, put them in text, and you can drag them to like activate them and give them a date in your database.
Very cool.
The other thing we leverage a lot in templates is actually using template buttons, especially to build agendas. At our organization at Precision Nutrition, we have a demo event template, and so in that template is just two simple buttons that were like add a demo or add. I think we call them like nerd tech demo or something. So like that button, you just click that button as many times. So when somebody comes in and say, our QA team will come in and say, hey, everybody add your events to the demo agenda, please. We can go to that and we click new demo and you write like what squad you're in, what you're going to be demoing, any questions, feedback that you're looking for. So it helps really quickly build an agenda with template buttons like that.
Yeah. Yeah, so you probably have a couple different types. And just a tip, if you do put one together with all your linked databases that you like, it's a lot easier to duplicate this than it is to make a new one and have to make all those databases again. So I'm going to duplicate the sync meeting, and then let's call this, you know, agenda or, you know, something different. And then maybe you want to just switch up a couple properties here. But that can save you some time if you've already done some work in the body of the entry itself. So I've got a couple meeting templates here. Probably want to do something similar with project templates as well, right? Every time it's a new project, choosing a department, touching the docs.
Just real quick, I'm laughing at myself looking at the events calendar because we just name every engineering sync the date and then like order it sequentially on a page.
I mean, you can do that too. You can say now.
Actual calendar.
You can do a little time.
No, but not even using like at today, for instance, like literally writing September 24, and that's the header for the meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can even just say like, you know, today, just use an at mention. But I think having it at least in a database, then you can filter that data too. Like, show me all the meetings from last week. Show me the ones that are older than a month that have action items that aren't complete. Like, it gives you so much flexibility with where did things kind of fall through the cracks.
Yeah. I was mentioning to Marie last night that when I first started a couple years back at PN, we created a meeting notes calendar, and we were using the created at date to display them on the calendar. And after a year, we realized that people were creating these events for like demos for the next week or whatever in advance, and so they would be showing on the wrong date because they created them in advance, and so it got really confusing. So it's easy to make mistakes like that.
Absolutely. Just Notion's so powerful. It's just a lot to learn, right, of what it can do. Okay, cool. What's next, Ben, in terms of this roadmap? Or should we like make an engineering page that could kind of demo almost like
I think we should get into the meat of the project a little more and make a template for that. Okay. So we can see and let
me copy.
So yeah, just copy that whole thing and put it into a template. Project template. And so, you know, overview is great. Project team, let's move that up to a property for people, a people property.
Yeah, this is,
So
this is another interesting thing that I have been doing, which just like the date makes it so that I can't actually, or our team can't
yeah,
filter things at scale. So we've just been putting things that I'm now realizing you guys are adding by default as properties as just parts of the body.
yeah.
Yep.
You
So
can
lots of little tips I'm
you
picking up.
can filter content by the page content, but it's a lot trickier to do when it's not in a database property. And what this affords you to do is that people can create a private page locally in their own space and say, okay, show me all the projects that I'm working on. Show me all the meeting notes that I just and I did. Show me all my actions that I'm doing. So you can even templatize that page. So when a new employee starts, you might have an onboarding process that says, okay, click this little template button to create your Notion dashboard. And it gives them all their actions, what they're working on. So they have a landing page to go to, and they can even create content from that. And the great thing about filtered databases is when you click the new button on those, it inherits all that context. So if I have a quick action item I need to create, I can go to my filtered database, my own personal dashboard, and click new there. And it's automatically going to assign that task to me because the filter, it inherits it from the filters and stuff like that. So that's a lot of what I advise people to do is, you make these connected top level global things, and then you make dashboards for each department, and then each individual person can have their own dashboards.
And that way too, you can also view your projects or your tasks by team member too. If you're like, oh, what does this person have on their plate this week that's incomplete or in progress? So you as a CEO can get a little bit more visibility into what's on everybody's plate.
So the rest of this, like roadmap wise, that would be where I would make a milestones database, and and that way a linked milestones database.
Should we use the events database, but like have milestone type basically?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, I think that's smart.
So I know it's if we can have fewer calendars, it's probably
absolutely
ideal.
Smart. Yeah.
So Leah, let's filter this, and we're in a template right now. So I'm just going to filter this.
Marie, the thing I'm observing is like you're trying to abstract as much as you can away as possible into a few or just a couple key databases. Is that fair?
Yes.
Like abstract, abstract, abstract. And
exactly.
Then everything relates to that abstraction, basically.
And you can always still have, project specific databases and such, but I think getting the overall skeleton ready so that it pretty much applies anytime you've got a new project, anytime you've got a new department, you're always kind of using these sort of same standards. So start global and then go to specific.
Totally.
I think
that's great.
And I think what we're seeing with this, Marie, if you can take a second to go into the Harmonic Handbook, the engineering page, I just want to point something out here. So go to engineering. So this page right here has a lot of information. It's not, I would say, maybe even alphabetical sort of these documents might be more beneficial to finding information. But what I see a lot in these Notion spaces is that there's nothing actionable about this page. I have no idea what I'm supposed to be doing here. What I'm like, you have to know exactly what you're looking for and where it is, or you have to rely on Notion search, which when you start getting into hundreds of thousands of documents, especially when you're naming them by date or such and such, like it can be a lot harder to find. One of the really powerful things in Notion is the scoped database search is super fast. So if I search that doc right there, it's kind of inline search rather than doing a backend search of the entire space. So if I know I'm it's super fast. So really we started doing this thing where we linked our docs database, because our engineering docs database has like thousands of documents in it now on how to do stuff, backend ops, all that stuff. We advise people to just go to the documentation space and search, because it's a lot faster than saying the quick find. Always that maybe some feedback for your team, but like the quick find is actually slower than searching directly in a database. So it's not, that isn't entirely clear sometimes. So yeah, like here, Marie's showing an example of, so I could roll up the docs based on a tag, engineering docs, and then I can, so now I don't have to go and search through that documentation. I've already got all my docs there on that landing page. And here you might show like, you could roll up the the roadmap for engineering into here. You could show current, like the last 10 events that happened, that kind of thing. So this is where we start getting into this, like for Max, who's the COO, this is like the organizational stuff that he probably wants to see. What the heck is going on at my company, and not just like a list of documents, right?
Yeah, this is so exciting to see. I feel so silly for like list of unsorted directories.
This is awesome.
I mean, there's so much cool stuff you can do, and we're not even like Harmonic's current handbook isn't even scratching the surface.
Mm-hmm.
What's exciting about doing a dashboard like this too, where you're using linked databases everywhere, is if you decide, oh, I like this layout of a department, you can now duplicate this entire page and all the linked databases, and then you can just kind of adjust the filters. Obviously, that would duplicate all these pages over here, so I'd move those out. But again, once you've made a dashboard once, as long as you're using linked databases, you can duplicate it as many times as you want. Makes things a lot easier to build. I hope Max is Max still here?
I'm still here, yeah.
Okay.
Is my video gone or something?
No, we can see.
You're back. Okay, cool. Okay, what's next, Ben, do you think, from a roadmap perspective? And like, should we pull some of the tasks into the project? Should we keep building out that project database, or show from a department level kind of?
Let's go back to the projects, because I think there was some more that we can improve in that template there.
Yeah, right. Okay, so let's.
So a lot of the stuff that I noticed about the current system is that they rely on in-page content, which we've been sort of replacing. So
yeah,
I would, this events thing would be great as a timeline, because that's where you actually get that roadmap look, where you can see what's going on and when events are coming up. And you'll notice, like, I would suggest, like, get rid of that. Make sure that that's filtered to the project.
All right. And yeah, just as a heads up too, if you're ever putting linked databases inside your templates, you will have to filter each view. So I know sometimes people make the view and then they spit out the template. They're like, the filter didn't work. You have to make sure that the filters are applied on every single view. So let's filter this to the current project, which is a template, right?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, this is Max. If you pick the name of the template as the filter in your template, when you create something from that template, it'll automatically pick up the new filter. So when you create a new project, it'll automatically, all of stuff on the page will be filtered and accurate.
So we'll delete these, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this kind of is the roadmap, basically.
Mm-hmm.
We've got our product docs. Okay.
And that one's filtered too. And then say, because they're using ClickUp, I would recommend removing that from the body and adding that link as a source there. And this is probably going to be a thing for a later time, but there is a automate.io automation, so when we add action items to the project, or stuff is added on the ClickUp side, we can sync those two back and forth using something like automate.io or Zapier. You might even do something, Max, where you have a property on the actions database that's like checkbox, like sync to ClickUp, and you only sync the things that you want to create action items on the other side, something like that.
Well, now I'm starting to think, why not just figure out how to do actions in Notion, and then it can just be part of everybody's dashboard.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It does make life easier when it's all kind of integrated and together. And yeah, once you see how it all connects, it might make more sense. So now I just add that other layer of actions into my projects. Takes a bit of time, of course, to set it up. But once you start thinking in terms of these templates, you'll see how much time it saves you anytime you spin up a new template, and everything you need is already there, filterable, ready to go.
Marie, can I ask a question that I get a lot from users? Is that all right?
Yeah.
In these views, and I know one thing, when you're running a project, especially as like a team lead, you're trying to get a sense, and maybe we can talk about this after we do this part, but the sense of like progression, like our task completed, like Max is probably thinking like, oh, did my like front-end engineer finish this task that he was supposed to do? in this week, but getting that like that sense of progress and like task completion. I would love if you had any perspective or opinion on how this should look and how it could solve that for someone like Max or myself who's leading a team.
So somewhere where like you could open up the project or whatnot, just to kind of see where,
yeah, and
where are we in the big picture?
Get a quick sense of progress. Yeah, like is this done?
Yeah.
I get a lot of those questions.
We kind of don't. We don't have our actions rolled up into this project yet, so that could be a place where we can see like you could have almost like a project status dashboard, and that could show you like recently completed items, things that were done in the last week or day, because we can filter dates on completed. So a lot of the stuff that we do internally is we could have a task database that based on a checkbox property will mark that thing as completed, or you use in my own personal system I use a completed at date, which tells the system that the task is done, and it's also and gives you some context into when things are completed. So you could do something completely out wild like a burn down chart Jira style, or that kind of thing if you were to create that. And yeah, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I, as an engineer, I'm like super excited to see if Notion explores in the future, is the ability to, if I have a set of data, I want to visualize that data in some way that I decide, like, so can I build my own components for Notion that I could say add to the / command and bring that content in. But yeah, so you're bringing in the actions database now, Marie?
Yeah, I connected the action items to the projects now. And filtered it below here. And so again, you can do this at the project level, but you can also do this on a dashboard level, would be to, show everything that's been completed in the last week or something like that, or even a timeline view of all completed stuff over time. So give yourself a couple different options of show me everything that's incomplete and outstanding, anything that's overdue, anything assigned to me, like, and give yourself some options there. Inside an individual project, I would keep those views global, top level. Anything that's specific to you, I would do on your own kind of CEO level dashboard, so that you're not having people seeing everybody's names like Max's tasks or whoever's tasks all in these different views. I don't think it's necessarily that helpful. But yeah, I'd probably have a couple.
Quick, like tangential question here related to all the templates you're creating. When you're thinking about, like, we're talking about task management now. Like, let's say you're thinking about creating a template for task management, right?
Yep.
Right. And maybe you have like the date range and the estimated effort and the assignee and all the standard stuff you'd expect. The same way that you're creating templates with other properties for projects and whatnot. How often do you just like open up the create new template and do it on the fly versus search some like pre-existing Notion repository of templates? Because like in my mind, I've got to imagine that like using Notion for task management or project management or any of these use cases is something lots of other people have done. One thing I don't have a lot of insight into is how often those templates either get centralized like by Notion or in some community repository so that you can easily reuse them.
I'm not sure if I totally follow, but I think task management is one of the most difficult things to wrap your head around, but it's so crazy powerful. So when you understand what you can do with task templates. So for example, I do almost all of my task management on my own dashboard, and I have views like show me my tasks per project or show me everything that's incomplete that needs to happen today. So I am always adding to the actions database, always. I would rarely ad hoc add something anywhere. I'm always adding it from my own central CEO dashboard. And the filters that I have, those different views, allow me to rapidly add a task, and it can inherit 10 properties in one go. So it's really powerful that way to be able to one step add a task, but you're not having to manually go through and add all those properties. Those are already kind of ready to go for you in your templates.
Oh, yeah. So just to clarify the question a little bit, I more mean when you're creating the initial template that you're then going to be reusing and, populating your database with. How often, when you're like, okay, I need a new template for a task because I'm going to have a task database and a task management system, or I need a new template for a project because I'm going to have a project management system and a way to like manage projects. How often do you do what you're doing right now, which is create a new template that you yourself can then reuse, versus go to some central place where Notion says, here are the templates for all of the standard use cases that you might like. I don't even know if that database exists.
I don't, I mean, I don't want to say that they're not helpful, but I think Marie and I pretty much only create our own templates at this point. I think once you start getting into the Notion templates are great for kind of boilerplate stuff and getting started. But once you start getting into the actual meat of your personal operations, because every business is completely different in the way that they want to do things, you can start extending those templates, and that's where you get into the creating your own stuff. Yeah. I think the tricky thing is that you really do need someone at your organization who's going to be leading and collecting feedback from different teams and understanding how each individual wants to use Notion, and then you can kind of make some agreeances on the best case, best way to move forward together, because a lot of times people have different opinions. Like Marie referenced earlier, but some of the organizations we've seen, they don't have any kind of centralized task management. So like she said, they each have employee names, tasks. And so nobody can see what everybody's doing at the organization because there's no centralized agreed on way of creating tasks. So I think as you get more complex in your build, you're going to have to start creating your own templates more frequently.
Mm-hmm. And I would say I don't create them super often. It's like I've been using Notion so long, I know the kinds of projects I work on over and over again. So I sort of have my go-to templates. I do things like, is it deep work or is it, administrative work? Is it, 4 Pomodoros, is it 1? So I have a couple of different ones based on, is this like a really intensive task? Is this a, project specific task? And then that will automatically create all the relations and kind of add all the properties that I want in one go. So it's pretty fast to do it if you have a handle on what are the things that you tend to do over and over again. So
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And that's where it is a bit of a process to set up initially too. But once it's good to go and you one click spin up a template, you're like, oh wow, that was so much easier. Yeah.
So I just want to note here, I'm looking back at the engineering list of files. So Max, are you starting to see where, for example, okay, so we've got project objective docs, design docs, we got pre-mortems. So like these design docs and the project objective docs, they could still live in a separate database, but now I think you could link those into your project. So the way I usually tell people to do this is a lot of organizations have very different systems for doing stuff. Like the designers are going to be probably using like Figma and Miro and all these different design tools. And so they need to be able to do their work a little bit differently. So it's difficult to say like, this is where you put all your project stuff. So what you can do is create links to those docs in the project. So the project itself, I think your top level project should be as bare bones as possible. And the complexity can exist in linked systems. So when you were saying like, I can come in here at Project Flamingo, I should be able to go up to the top and see, here's the design document for this. Here's the communications releases. Here's the product docs, so that you have a canonical source of information for a project, but each individual team can do the work the way that they want to do the work. So yeah, I think that's pretty key to this kind of stuff. And then it's just basically a matter of now I can filter this data however I like. So if I'm the CEO and I'm really interested in Project Flamingo, maybe that's all I'm looking at right now, or maybe I'm looking at the roadmap and I can see all of the milestones for all the projects at the same time. So it's highly Marie calls it, she has a system called Horizons, which is different like levels of looking at the data to be able to make insights, more readily. Looks like we've only got like 5 minutes left. I wonder, Marie, if you should show like an example of your space and the way that you do task management or something, or do you think that's too much? I think you're muted.
Oh, you're muted, Marie.
Oh, thanks. Tough call. It might be a little overwhelming, but yeah. Without more context. But yeah.
I think I know you have might have a bit of a hard stop, Max. Is there anything question-wise that we haven't kind of touched on yet that you might want to get more insight on while we're here?
Not necessarily. This is like a fire hose of new features for me that I'm really excited to try out. Yeah, I guess, I mean, no pressure, Marie. It is only 5 minutes and it could be overwhelming. I am starting to think now about how cool it would be to like bring everything into Notion and wondering what task management does look like there.
Yeah.
If your own workspace might be like a little heavy for us to look at, maybe there's like a, I don't know, 5-minute overview you can do with a fake task template.
Yeah, let me take a peek at how safe the space is. Make sure there's nothing personal here. But yeah, I can switch to I'll switch to my today page so you can kind of see what this looks like. You can see my screen. And sorry, Notion, I think because I get to beta test some features, there's probably some stuff on here that sorry. Hopefully I don't get in trouble for that. But Notion's got some grouping views here that you know, are not public, so some of the stuff might not totally make sense. But as you can see, I've got a ton of different views here, but I have a pretty interesting automated system because I decide in advance what projects I work on and what days of the week. And so I've got my journal there. It's Friday. It tells me in the morning I'm working on like reflecting and review and process related stuff. In the afternoon is buffer time and learning. So that's for me, just like my guardrails of what you said was today's focus. I know I've got my webinar today. That's my only main obligation today. Once that's done, I'll be able to, you know, check that off as complete. It's related to the project, which is Notion Hot Seats. All right, so I have a number of different task templates here. So if I say I've got a new, let's add a new task here. I'm going to say immersive work. If I click on immersive work, then it's already applied focus. It's applied my name. It's due tomorrow. Some of the templates apply a ton more properties than others, but it's just a way to kind of help me rapidly add that stuff super, super quickly. I've got some pretty complex filtering here. So like, is the project on the front burner and is today? Yes. Again, this is definitely level 301. I would never show this to a beginner, but part of the reason I designed this is for my own ADHD. Like I need to see minimal distractions. And so I have some pretty complex filters to be like, don't touch anything else until you've done the most important thing. Once I've done that, then I can actually open it up and say, okay, show me just everything that's due this week or just that's due tomorrow without all those really specific filters that are filtering front burner projects. So it's a little hard to explain without, you know, a full walkthrough, but it really works for me. It's totally designed for my brain and the way I think about projects. And Marie, I hope to do some more YouTube videos around it to kind of to show people how it actually works. But yeah.
The same way that Marie Kondo goes in and like helps organize people's like physical spaces. I feel like you should, like, I want you to come and help me organize my life.
Somebody give me a show so I can do this to people's Notion spaces. It's so fun. It's so fun to do this. Yeah. So to me, this is my, I can't really show you some of the pages because they've got even like, you know, financial goals and all that stuff here. But Horizon is a landing page that shows me today, this week, month, quarter, year, all at a glance. And I can see what are the active projects, what's my focus, where am I at with things. So I kind of think every person at the company should have their own version of that, is like, what's on schedule, what are my big goals, what's happening, and kind of have a big overview page. But that's really personal to each person on the team. So you can really customize what you want to see.
All right. I think we're basically at time. This has been really wonderful. We had some questions that get asked. Just really quick, if we just have 2 seconds, I would love your perspective on this, Marie or Ben. Ben, you've worked with teams at your company to convince them to use Notion. So that's a great question. Just like getting people to move away from old habits and of using email, Word docs. Someone that says, oh, you can do that in Notion. Any quick tips on like getting a team used to Notion, getting them on Notion and bought into it and changing those old habits?
Yeah. So to start onboarding onboarding in small groups is really important. So I would start with a small technical team first. So usually, we started at our organization with about 5 or 10 engineers who may be a little more comfortable with the technical stuff. But at the end of the day, though, it's really interesting with no code that I have very high level engineers, senior people that use Notion for punch lists, like just checklists and a daily journal, and they have no idea how to use like databases and stuff like that. So the idea of Notion being like only for techie people or something, I think is a bit flawed, because we have a bit of variety in, do I want to use this? Or maybe they have their own paper-based system for tracking their tasks, so they don't use it too much. But start with a small group. I actually have started working on something for enterprise customers lately that is going to be an onboarding system for Notion. And it's going to basically move people through access to certain areas based on certain actions that they've done in Notion. So that's something that we're working on that's going to facilitate onboarding people more slowly into Notion. Because I think what, Max highlighted a key issue here, which is the fire hose. So if you have a bunch of complex systems in Notion and you're just like, hey, access, that can be a little scary for new employees. So onboarding, definitely moving people through the complexity. Personally, it really helps to have somebody at the organization who is a Notion pro, or we call them at our organization, we call them documentarians. And I do weekly or monthly office hours where a lot of times people will bring me like, here's what we're looking to do. We're looking to publish in one of the areas that I think is really Notion's really great for is insight gathering. And so with the team, I work with each team lead, and we build systems for so the head of product can collect all of these sub product managers' feedback of what they've been working on for the last month in a way that rolls it up, and then they basically write a report about their answers, and then those can be rolled up further and as like a report to the CEO essentially. So stuff like that, where you're doing you have a person who's in charge of setting up systems in Notion, and then you can, people will bring ideas to you and you can quickly demo how to use Notion and stuff like that. But yeah, it's challenging. And that's what Marie and I are joining up to do, is to try to figure out like what's the best way to introduce a large team to this software, because it's, with there isn't any guardrails in terms of what the software can do. So there isn't a really, like, once you've built a really complex system, now you actually have to document it. It's not just like I go look at the Asana docs, because Asana works one way and that's it, really, right? So yeah, that's a tricky thing. I'm looking at the question here. Old ways of using email, Word docs, etc. So personally, I think like the recent comment updates to Notion have basically, at least at my company, people are actually moving away from Google. Finally, they're like letting go of their death grip on Google Docs, because that was the one thing that people would get into Notion and they couldn't really readily provide feedback or understand where their comments went when they were resolved. So now that we have this sidebar view of comments, people are actually more comfortable moving away from Google Docs, because that was the thing that they were missing from Notion, was a way to collect feedback and actually, see what had been discussed in the past. So yeah, I think if that's for this person, that AC who asked the question, you may want to like promote Notion again internally and say, hey, like some of these recent UX updates have really improved, so on and so forth. Yeah,
it's a process. And like Ben touched upon, show, don't tell. So I try to design the pages as though it's like a website that you're going to drop a complete stranger in. They should be able to navigate without kind of, having to read a manual. It's like the space itself has inline callouts, explanations, maybe some embedded Loom videos. It's like, unfortunately, you do have to take that extra time to make sure it's really clear when somebody new comes in. So that extra time that you take to do that documentation is going to make a big difference. It is time consuming, but again, you're going to save time down the road for sure. Show, don't tell whenever possible. Yeah.
Show, don't tell. That's an awesome thing to end on. I think that's true for a lot of products. Thank you so much to everyone that attended. I'd shared a couple links, but we're going to be doing a lot more of these, at least 3 more coming up with similar companies, startups, founders, and really trying to walk through a live workflow. So hopefully you all found this helpful. And yeah, we're looking forward to continuing to do these. That was kind of it. Anything else that anyone else wanted to share?
Thanks, Max, for being willing to be a bit of a guinea pig today. Yep. And I'm sure it's complex. You're going to hop back into your space and you go, okay, where do I start? So, don't hesitate to reach out if you need any clarification. And hopefully this was helpful.
Yeah, this was an awesome session. Really appreciate the invite, Awais and Marie and Ben, your consulting help here. This was awesome.
Awesome,
everybody. Talk to you all soon. Thanks for attending.
Bye.
Bye.